This week's going to be a little bit different. We're not traditional but we're going full traditional with a Viennese Schnitzel and Erdäpfelsalat, which is potato salad. So when I grew up, a schnitzel was something that was in the frozen section of the supermarket. It was usually some chicken crumbed. Then when I come to Austria, I found out what a schnitzel is actually meant to be, albeit a Viennese schnitzel. So the meat has to be veal, not some dry chicken breast. Also, the crumb has to be a specific kind of crumb, which is a superfine casserole breadcrumb. The main thing is, you don't want to be pressing the crumb hard into the meat because you want it to puff, and then the meat kind of steams cooked inside. And it turns out absolutely amazing. Most restaurants in Austria, you're going to get pork, but the full traditional is with veal. Most of the time it's going to be served with Preiselbeeren jam, which is very similar to cranberry, and Erdäpfelsalat, not Kartoffelsalat. We're in Austria here, which this is how you make potato salad here. Where I grew up, mayonnaise based. Here, it's more vinegary, mustard. It's actually pretty damn good. Also, you're going to get some lemon wedges on your plate. I don't be squirting that all over my schnitzel, but because we're going traditional, it's on the plate. So here we are, a week before, and we need to make some stock. So I was at the store and I bought the usual suspects that I buy anyway for making stock. It's a little different though. Usually, I would prefer to get some more beef bones, but at the supermarket, they didn't have any. So, I'm making it a little bit different today than what I usually do. They have this piece of meat in Austria. They used to make a dish called Tafelspitz, which is boiled meat. I'm going to change it up a little bit. So I'll put this aside and we'll come back to this later. I bought some chicken carcasses that are all cut up. They sell these in a pack here. I bought them to throw in, and I bought some beef leg, which is also cut up. Got a big nice bone running through it. Nice bit of fat, so we'll keep that. They also got some vegetables. Now they sell these in a little pack, already bundled up, specifically for stock. They got some parsnips, some carrots, some parsley, and I got a little bit of leek chucked in there. I'll probably get 2 cloves of garlic and I'll crush those and chuck those in as well. So first things first, we're gonna get this all laid out in the tray. I've already got my oven preheated to 200 degrees. I'm gonna throw that in and we'll come back in about half an hour once it's starting to get a little bit of color on it. So with this cut, I'm going to treat it a little bit different to all the bones because I actually want to preserve this and I want to keep it. Because it is a very nice cut of meat. Instead of shoving it in the pot and then cooking it till it's destroyed, I'm going to get the big stock pot. I'm going to get this up to temperature and I'm just going to sear this off and I'm going to set it aside until maybe an hour or 2 before the end of cook. Then I'll put this in the stock and I'll let it finish cooking right at the end there. So I can get some nice slices out of it and actually eat this piece. I've got my pan up to a medium heat, and if we're already riffing on an Austrian classic, we might as well sear this off with a little bit of clarified butter. So we'll just melt that down real quick. Alright, once we've got the clarified butter melted down, got my piece of meat, nice little cut here, and we'll go in with the fat cap down first off. Now you don't want your pan screaming hot, but you just want to push it down, make sure it's got good contact, and we'll just get a nice bit of colour on that one side. So while your piece of meat's searing away here, here's a little tip. If you got to pick it up and turn it, and it's completely stuck to the bottom of the pan, it means it's not ready yet. So just leave it on that medium heat, and it'll release itself once it's finished searing. Once your piece of meat's released itself from the bottom, means it's nicely seared on one side. Just going to flip it over, push it down on the other side, and get a good sear on the other side. Alright, once you've got good colour on that side, like that, make sure you show the side some love as well. Once you've seared your piece of meat all over like that, you want to remove it to a plate, and we're going to set this aside. You want to take your pot off the heat, but you don't want to be washing that out. We're going to use that for making the stock. Okay, so I've had my meat browning away for about 30 minutes there. We're just going to go ahead, flip all the pieces over. Also at this point, throw some veg in. Also, while I was standing around waiting for this to brown off, I went ahead and chopped the stalks off a bulb of fennel that I had, and I crushed a bunch of garlic cloves. Now I am using about 7. I love garlic, so feel free just to put 1 or 2 in, or admit it all if you want. Okay, once I got all that back in, I'm going to shove this back in the oven for about another 15-20 minutes, and we'll come back and have a look. Okay, so while you're standing around waiting for your meat to brown off, just go ahead, put your pot back on the stove. You just want to go ahead and put a little bit of water on the bottom, deglaze all that good stuff off the bottom, because once we put everything back in here and we fill it up with water, the stuff that's stuck onto the bottom could burn, and then it's going to taint the whole rest of your stock. So it takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Just go ahead, put a little bit of water on the bottom like I did, and just scrape up all that good stuff. You'll thank me in the end. So the meat and the veg has been in there for another 15 minutes. Now we're just going to transfer everything into the big pot. Also any juice that's accumulated as well. Everything goes into the pot. I'm going to put this onto the stovetop. Once you've got it all scraped off the bottom, into the pot it goes. Now the next thing's simple enough. Just fill it up with water. We're going to need some more. So because I live in an apartment, and it's not a very big apartment, I'm going to be cooking this outside on the balcony because I don't want my pillows smelling like stock. So I've got this lid here. It's a mesh. That'll let most of the steam come out because I don't want to cover this while I'm cooking it. So I'm going to bring this outside, bring it up to the boil, reduce it to a simmer, and then I'm just going to scoop off any foamy bits that float to the top or anything that floats to the top that I don't really want to eat later on. I'll be doing that periodically in the first, hour or 2 hours this is cooking away. So I'm going to head outside. Okay, so I've had this piece of meat tented underneath foil in the fridge, just because I don't want to let meat sit out for a few hours. But now it's come time to stick it into the stock. So we'll head outside. So this has been bubbling away for a few hours here. And I did tell some fibs before. I said I was going to come out and scoop off some stuff off the top in the first couple of hours of cooking. But I never did. I got sidetracked. And you don't really need to do that if you don't want to. Now we're just going to plop in the piece of meat. And all those juices, we'll scooch those in there. I'll pop my lid back on. And just let it keep doing its thing. Okay, after your stock's been boobling away for a few hours there, we're going to strain it into another pot. And try not to spill it all over the place. So the pieces of leg meat and this other big chunker of meat here, we're going to put into another pot, and then we're going to strain some of the stock over that. And mainly because there was too much stock to fit in the other pot. So I'm going to completely cover this meat, then we're going to stick a lid on it, and we're going to let that meat just rest in the stock. Okay, so now this meat's completely covered with the stock. Now we're going to let these both cool down, then we're going to stick them in the fridge. Now with this meat, you can slice this up, and you can use it for lunch meat. You can use it for dinners during the week. You can use this meat for all kinds of different things. So here we are, back in the present day to crack on with this potato salad. The potatoes you got to use, they're called festkockend. It is what it is. You can always use ones called speckige. Pretty much, if you can use the potato for mashed potato, you want to use the exact opposite kind of potato because you want these to hold their shape when we cook them. So as you just saw, I put them in the pot whole. We're going to cover them with cold water. There's no real reason to salt this at the moment because I believe that the salt won't penetrate through the skins when we peel them anyway. So I'm going to pop a lid on, we're going to put this on the stove on high, bring it up to a boil, and then cook them till they're nice and tender. But not too soft. The potatoes are cooked. And I know that because I looked at the biggest one in the packet, and I pierced it with a knife, and it went in nice and easy. Before we peel these and burn the bejeebers out of our hands, we'll make the sauce, because as soon as we peel them, we've got to cut it into the dressing, so it sucks up all that good flavour. So to start the dressing off, we're going to need some vinegar. Hesperiden vinegar is the one you should be using. Now, if you're outside of Austria, or I dare say even Germany, you probably can't get this. So just use any of the wine vinegars you can usually get your hands on. So, in it goes, sugar and salt. We also need to add some mustard. Estragon mustard is the one you should be using. Everywhere else in the world, if you can't get your hands on this, Dijon probably works, but, try and get your hands on some good mustard. In that goes. Then we give that a little mix together. Right, now we're going to add some of the stock. I also melted a little bit of the fat in there, I don't know if that's actually traditional, but it can't make it any worse. Then we'll give that a little mix in. I've also got one small onion that I've chopped up super fine here. We're going to bung that in as well. And we'll give that a little mix in. All right, now we set this aside and we bring on the pane. I say that because these are still quite warm, and that is a key to this recipe. We have to peel these while they're still warm and then cut them into this marinade we just made so it all sucks it all in. If you do it when it's cold, it won't be right. The best way to do them is just get yourself a small knife and then just scrape the skins off. As soon as you've peeled your potato like that, you want to cut them straight into the marinade. Now, you don't want too thinner slices. You actually want them, you don't want them too thick either, but I would say that thick, that's super hot. As you can see, got all my potatoes sliced in. Now, very carefully, I'm just going to move them around and get them all nicely mixed in with this marinade here. But you want to do this super carefully because you don't want to break up your potatoes too much. Once you get it all mixed in, I just want to get it all pressed down so as much as covered by this marinade underneath as possible, just like that. Now we're just going to let this stand for at least 1 hour, preferably a little bit longer, and then we'll come back and finish it off. It's time to crack on with the meat. I've got some veal. That's the traditional way. But most of the time, when you go to a restaurant, they're going to give you some pork. But today, because we're going full, you know, authentic veal. We treat it exactly the same way as you would if you were getting some pork. Got some happy wrap here. Get your piece of veal, slap it on there. Another piece over the top. And you grab your handy dandy hammer. And you don't want to beat this to oblivion, but you just want to thin it out a little bit and get it all the same size. So you just want to lightly tap it. And I usually give it a bit of a hit and like sort of push it out a little bit. You also want this quite thin because when we go to cook it, we're not going to be flipping it over. We're going to be just cooking it on the one side so we get that nice puff. It's very common with Austrian Schnitzel. The end result should be a nice piece of meat like that, nicely flat, the same thickness all the way across. Now you could be very pedantic and move this bit of silver skin, but in my opinion it's not really going to make much difference. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of the pieces flattened out. As you can see, I've got my breading station set up here. Got some flour, got some eggs, and I got some breadcrumbs. Specifically the breadcrumbs are from a Kaiser roll, but everywhere else in the world you can just get some fine breadcrumbs like that. Now I've just got a thin layer on the bottom here, and I have some extra onto the side. So when I put the meat on, I'm going to sprinkle this over the top, and you don't want to be pressing this down. You just want a light coat just so it sticks on there. So the meat, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some salt on both sides, and then it goes simple enough into the flour, shake off the excess, into the egg, let the excess drip off, and then into the crumb. And as I said, put some over the top, and then that's it. You just want to pick it up. Now we head to the stove. I've got some oil, which is about a 50-50 mix of oil and clarified butter. You want to test if it's hot enough? You put a wooden spoon in, and it should fizzle, which is not. So we're going to crank up the temperatures just a little bit. For everyone keeping score at home, if you've got an infrared thermometer, you can also try that. You stick it in. As you can see, we're just about up to that 150-ish mark. 150 degrees Celsius mark. So you want to try with the wooden spoon again, and as you can see, starting to bubble away nicely. So I'm going to lay in the schnitzel, and I'm going to start basting with the fat over the top, and yeah, cook it. This is called souffling. As we're cooking away here, you can probably see it's starting to puff up a little bit just here, which is exactly what we're looking for. So you just want to keep on basting away until we get a nice golden brown colour. And when you got a nice golden brown colour on it, you're going to remove it to a paper towel lined plate. To finish off the potato salad, we're going to go in with some neutral oil and some chives. Probably too much chives, but I like chives, so I put a little bit extra. Now, just gently again, we're going to go ahead with our hands, because it's the easiest thing to use in this case, and we're just going to give it a little mix. And with our dirty hands, the potato salad's finished. Now that's all that's left to do with this potato salad, is to give it a taste and see if it needs any more salt. Now it's good. Now the day's coming to an end, as you can see by my amazing lighting. It's time to eat this schnitzel. As you can see, the crumb is held together, but is separated from the meat, and the meat is actually steamed cooked inside. Rub it on the meat. It's not very often you're going to get a veal schnitzel in the rest of the world. When you get it, mine is very close to how you're going to get it in the restaurant. As for the potato salad, complements the schnitzel perfectly. The vinegar and the mustard in it cut through all the fat of the schnitzel. Usually I like to mess around with traditional foods and make them a little bit different to my taste, but the Austrians absolutely nailed it with this one. You don't need to change a damn thing.